I
I
have a
was just
delivery
trying to
for
make
you.
it through another day on the job delivering packages
Oh,
for a
I
courier
wasn't
service in
expecting
suburban
anything.
Ohio. It was one of those humid summer afternoons in 2023. The kind where the air feels like it's sticking to your skin, making your shirt cling to your back and your hair damp with sweat. I had a stack of boxes in the back of my van, my GPS barking directions in that robotic voice that gets on your nerves after a while, and a deadline to hit before the end of my shift. My name's Ethan Carter. I'm 27, just a regular guy trying to pay the bills and keep my head above water. This job wasn't glamorous. Driving around, dropping off packages, dealing with cranky customers who act like you personally delayed their order of dog food or yoga mats. But it was steady work and I was good at it. I'd been doing it for about 2 years, long enough to know the routes like the back of my hand, the shortcuts through quiet neighborhoods and the houses where you had to watch out for overzealous dogs that had chased you back to the van if you weren't quick. That day, though, something happened that I still can't fully wrap my head around, no matter how many times I replay it. It started with a routine delivery, just another stop on my route, but it ended with a whisper that turned my world upside down and left me questioning things I thought I'd long forgotten. I was halfway through my route around 2 p.m. when I pulled up to a quiet cul-de-sac in a neighborhood called Willow Creek. It's one of those places where every house looks like it was built from the same blueprint. Two-story colonials with white or beige siding, neatly trimmed lawns, basketball hoops in the driveways, and minivans parked out front. The kind of place where kids ride their bikes in circles, and neighbors wave at each other over picket fences. The address was 1427 Maple Drive, a delivery for a Mrs. Laura Bennett. The package was a small padded envelope, probably some online order, maybe a phone case or a book. Nothing unusual. I grabbed it from the back of the van, checked the label to make sure I had the right one, and headed up the walkway. The house was nice, well-kept, with white siding, blue shutters, and a flower bed with roses that looked like someone actually took the time to tend to them, unlike the overgrown yards at some of the other stops on my route. I rang the doorbell, expecting the usual. Drop the package, maybe get a quick signature if the customer was home, and move on to the next stop before the day got away from me. The door opened, and there she was, Laura Bennett. I recognized her right away, not because of the package, but because she was my high school best friend's mom. My buddy Jake Bennett and I were inseparable back in the day, like brothers almost. We'd spent countless hours at his house playing video games until our eyes burned, sneaking beers from the fridge when we thought no one was looking, talking about girls' dreams, and how we were going to get out of this small town and make something of ourselves. Laura was always around, the cool mom who'd make us sandwiches and pretend she didn't know we were up to no good in the basement. She looked different now, older obviously, but still had that warm smile and those sharp green eyes that seemed to see right through you, like she could tell what you were thinking before you even said it. She was in her late 40s, maybe early 50s, with blonde hair pulled back in a loose ponytail, wearing a light blue cardigan over a white top, looking like she just stepped out of a PTA meeting or a book club. "Hey, Ethan," she said, her voice casual, like it was no big deal that I was standing on her porch after almost a decade. Long time no see. I was caught off guard, to say the least. I hadn't seen her since Jake and I drifted apart after high school. He went off to college in California, chasing big dreams in the tech world, and I stayed local, working odd jobs, construction, retail, whatever I could find until I landed this courier gig. I smiled, trying to play it cool, even though my brain was scrambling to process the moment. "Mrs. Bennett, wow, yeah, it's been a while," I said, shifting the package in my hands. "How's Jake doing?" She waved a hand, stepping aside to let me in. "Oh, you know Jake, he's out in San Francisco working some fancy tech job, living his best life. Come in, set that package down. You want some water or something? It's hot out there." I hesitated. Company policy was clear. Don't go inside customers' houses. It's a liability thing. Plus, it slows down your route. But this was Jake's mom, someone I'd known for years. Someone who'd practically been a second mom to me back when I was a scrawny teenager with bad acne and worse ideas. Felt rude to say no, and honestly, I was parched from the heat. "Sure, thanks," I said, stepping into the foyer. The house smelled like lavender and fresh laundry, same as it did back when I was a kid, and it hit me with a wave of nostalgia. I set the package on a small entryway table next to a bowl of keys and a stack of mail and followed her to the kitchen. As she grabbed a glass from the cabinet, she started chatting, catching me up on Jake, how he was engaged now to some girl he met in college, how he rarely came home to Ohio anymore, too busy with his Silicon Valley life. I nodded along, sipping the water she handed me, feeling a little nostalgic myself. It was nice, like stepping back into a memory. A simpler time when my biggest worry was passing chemistry or getting a date to prom. We talked for a few minutes, just catching up, and I was starting to relax, thinking maybe this was just a nice moment, a little blast from the past. But then, as I set the glass down on the counter, she leaned in close, her voice dropping to a whisper. "You remember me, right?" I froze. The way she said it wasn't casual, like she was just confirming I knew who she was. It was heavy, like there was something behind it, something loaded with meaning I couldn't grasp. Her eyes locked onto mine, and for a second, I felt like I was missing something, like there was a puzzle piece I didn't have. My heart started beating a little faster, and I tried to laugh it off. Keep things light. Yeah, of course, I said, forcing a chuckle. "You're Jake's mom. How could I forget?" She didn't laugh. She just kept looking at me, her expression unreadable, like she was waiting for something else, something more. "No, Ethan," she said, her voice still low, almost intense. "I mean, do you remember me?" I didn't know what to say. My mind started racing, trying to figure out what she meant. Was she talking about something specific? Some moment from back in high school? I was 17 the last time I spent any real time at this house. I'd hung out here all the time, practically lived here some weekends, but nothing stood out as weird or memorable in a way that would explain this. I mean, she was always nice, maybe a little flirty in that mom way, like when she teased Jake and me about our bad haircuts or our pathetic attempts to impress girls at school. But that was it. Or was it? My brain was scrambling, trying to dig up anything that might make sense of her words, but I was coming up blank. I'm not sure what you mean," I said, trying to keep my tone light, even though I was starting to feel uneasy. "It's been a while, My Memer is not what it used to be." She straightened up, her smile returning, but it didn't reach her eyes. It was like she'd flipped a switch, going back to being the friendly mom. I remembered. "Oh, don't worry about it," she said, waving a hand like she was brushing it off. "Just an old lady being nostalgic. You probably have a million packages to deliver." "Huh? Yeah, I should get going," I said, grabbing at the excuse to leave. I thanked her for the water, my voice probably a little too quick, and headed for the door. But as I stepped outside, she called after me. "Ethan, come back sometime. We should catch up properly." I nodded, gave her a quick wave, and got back to my van as fast as I could without looking like I was running. As I pulled away, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Her words kept replaying in my head. "You remember me, right? What was that about?" I tried to brush it off as just a weird moment. Maybe her feeling sentimental about the old days, missing Jake, and the way things used to be. But the way she looked at me, the way her voice dropped, it stuck with me like a song you can't get out of your head. The rest of my shift was uneventful, but I was distracted. I dropped off packages, dealt with a guy who yelled at me because his box was dented like I'm the one who tossed it around in the warehouse, and got stuck in traffic on I-71 for almost an hour. But my mind kept going back to Laura. By the time I got home to my apartment, a small one, bedroom in Columbus with peeling paint and a fridge that hummed too loud, I was exhausted but restless. I grabbed a beer from the fridge, popped it open, and sat on my couch, staring at the wall, trying to make sense of it. I started thinking about high school, about all the times I'd been at Jake's house. Had something happened back then that I'd forgotten? Something she thought was important enough to bring up now all these years later. Jake and I were tight back then, like two peas in a pod. We met in freshman year, bonded over our mutual hatred of algebra and our love of classic rock. Led Zeppelin, the Doors stuff our classmates thought was ancient. His house was the hangout spot because his mom was chill and his dad was always working late. Some corporate job that kept him out until midnight most days. Laura was the kind of mom who'd let us stay up all night playing Xbox as long as we didn't break anything or make too much noise. She'd joke with us, tell us stories about her own teenage years, how she'd snuck out to see concerts, how she'd had her own dreams of leaving town. Sometimes she'd even join us for a round of Mario Kart, laughing when we'd crash into each other on purpose. I always thought she was cool, but I never thought much beyond that. She was just Jake's mom, the adult who was always there, keeping an eye on us, but never hovering. But now looking back, I started to wonder. There were little moments that seemed innocent at the time, but felt different in hindsight, like puzzle pieces that didn't quite fit, like how she'd sometimes sit a little too close when we were watching movies in their living room, her knee brushing against mine for a second longer than it needed to, or how she'd ask me questions about my life, my family, my plans, what I wanted to do after high school. That felt oddly personal, more than she'd ask Jake. I never thought anything of it back then. I was a dumb kid, too caught up in my own world to notice anything weird. But now with her whispering those words, I couldn't help but second-guess myself. Was there something I'd missed? Something I'd buried? I decided to text Jake. We hadn't talked in years. Not since he moved to California and I stayed behind. Our lives pulling us in different directions. But I still had his number buried in my phone's contacts. I kept it simple, not wanting to sound like I was freaking out. Hey man, long time was delivering a package to your mom's house today. She's doing good. You ever come back to Ohio? He replied a few hours later, probably after he got off work. Yo Ethan, that's wild. Yeah, mom's still in the old house. I'm in SF now. Engaged, crazy busy. You should catch up with her. She always liked you. Next time I'm in town, let's grab a beer. It was a normal response. Nothing weird. Just Jake being Jake Clayback friendly like no time had passed. But that last part, she always liked you, hit me funny. Did she? I mean, sure. She was nice to me, always welcoming when I came over. But was there more to it? Was I reading too much into it, letting my imagination run wild? I was starting to feel like I was overthinking it, like maybe I was making something out of nothing. But I couldn't let it go. Her words, her eyes, the way she leaned in, they were like a splinter in my mind, impossible to ignore. I needed to know what she meant. A few days later, I got another delivery for 1427 Maple Drive. Same deal, small package, probably another online order, maybe some kitchen gadget or a pair of earrings. My heart did a little flip when I saw the address pop up on my route list. Part of me wanted to avoid it, to just drop the package on the porch and leave without ringing the bell like I did at most houses. But another part of me was curious, maybe even a little desperate to figure out what was going on. What if she said something else? What if I could get some clarity? I pulled up to the house, same as before, the roses still blooming, the lawn still perfect. This time, Laura answered the door before I even rang the bell. Like she'd been watching for me, waiting. Ethan, back so soon, she said, smiling, her voice light, but with that same undertone I couldn't place. She was wearing a sundress, her hair down, looking more relaxed than last time, like she'd just come back from a walk or a coffee with friends. Yeah, another package for you, I said, holding it up, trying to keep things professional. You must be keeping Amazon in business. She laughed, but it felt forced, like she was playing a part. Oh, just little things here and there. Come in. It's too hot to stand out there. I hesitated again, that company policy nagging at me. But my curiosity got the better of me. I stepped inside, set the package down on the same entryway table, and she offered me a glass of iced tea this time. I accepted, figuring I could use the chance to see if she'd say anything else weird, maybe drop another clue. We sat at the kitchen table, and she started talking about the neighborhood, how it had changed since I was a kid. New families moving in, old ones moving out, the corner store turning into a coffee shop. She talked about how she missed the old days when Jake and I were always around making a mess, filling the house with noise. It was normal small talk, the kind you'd expect from someone catching up. But I could feel her watching me, her eyes lingering a little too long, like she was waiting for me to say something, to pick up on some unspoken cue. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. The tension was eating at me, and I needed answers. I sat down my glass, looked her in the eye and said, Mrs. Bennett, last time I was here, you asked if I remembered you. What did you mean by that? It's been bugging me. Her smile faded, and for a moment she looked almost sad. like I'd touched on something she wasn't ready to talk about. "Oh, Ethan," she said, her voice soft, almost fragile. "I just meant, you were such a big part of our lives back then. You and Jake, always together, always laughing, always up to something. I guess I just missed those days, you know? Seeing you again brought it all back." It sounded reasonable, like something a lonely mom might say after her kid moved across the country. But it didn't feel like the whole truth. Her eyes were doing that thing again, searching mine like she was looking for something specific, some recognition I wasn't giving her. I nodded, not sure what to say, feeling like I was stuck in a conversation where I didn't know the script. "Yeah, those were good times," I said, standing up, ready to get out of there. I should get back to my route. She walked me to the door, and as I stepped outside, she touched my arm lightly just for a second. "Ethan," she said, her voice low again, almost pleading. "If you ever want to talk, really talk, you know where to find me." I drove away feeling more confused than ever. What was she getting at? Was she just lonely, missing the past, trying to hold on to a piece of it through me? Or was there something else? Something I'd buried in my memory, something I didn't want to face. I started going through every interaction I could remember from high school, trying to find anything that stood out, anything that might explain her words. There was one night, senior year, that kept coming back to me, like a scene my brain wouldn't let go of. It was late, maybe 1 a.m., and Jake and I had been drinking in his basement, sneaking some of his dad's beers. We were feeling good, laughing about something stupid, when Laura came downstairs to check on us. Jake was already passed out on the couch, sprawled out like a starfish, snoring. I was tipsy, not blackout drunk, but definitely feeling the buzz. She sat down next to me, closer than she needed to, and we talked for a while about school, about my parents' divorce, about how I was feeling lost, like I didn't know where my life was going. It was deep, more personal than our usual banter. She put her hand on my knee at one point, just for a second, and said something like, "You're a good kid, Ethan. You're going to be okay." I didn't think much of it at the time. I was 17, half drunk, and just grateful someone was listening. But now looking back, it felt different, like there was an undercurrent I hadn't noticed. I started to wonder if I'd missed something back then, some signal or moment that she thought was significant. But I was 17 and she was an adult, old enough to be my mom. If anything had happened, wouldn't I remember it, and wouldn't it have been wrong? The thought made my stomach churn, a mix of guilt and unease. I didn't want to believe she'd crossed any lines, but her words, her tone kept gnawing at me like a loose thread I couldn't stop pulling. Over the next few weeks, I kept getting deliveries to her house. It was like she was ordering stuff just to see me. Random packages, small stuff, nothing that seemed urgent. Each time she'd invite me in, offer me a drink, water, iced tea, once even a lemonade, and make small talk that always felt like it was leading somewhere else. She'd drop little hints, comments about how I'd grown up so much, how she always knew I was special, how she'd always seen something in me. It was flattering in a way, but also unsettling, like she was trying to pull me into something I didn't understand. I started to dread going to her house, but I couldn't avoid it. It was my job, and I couldn't just skip a delivery because it made me uncomfortable. One day, I decided I couldn't keep dancing around it. I needed to know what was going on, needed to put an end to the questions swirling in my head. I showed up with another package, a small box this time, and when she invited me in, I took a deep breath and decided to confront her. "Mrs. Bennett," I said, standing in her kitchen, my hands gripping the edge of the counter. "I need to know what's going on. You keep saying things, asking if I remember you, and it's freaking me out. Did something happen back then that I don't know about? Something I should remember?" She looked startled, like she hadn't expected me to call her out so directly. For a moment, she didn't say anything, just stared at the floor, her hands fidgeting with the hem of her cardigan. Then she sighed long and heavy and sat down on the couch, motioning for me to sit too. I stayed standing, my heart pounding, waiting for her to explain. "Ethan," she said, her voice barely above a whisper, like she was afraid someone might overhear. "I'm sorry if I've made you uncomfortable. I've been going through some things. After Jake left for college and my husband, well, he's gone a lot traveling for work, sometimes weeks at a time. The house feels empty, And I guess seeing you again brought back memories, made me feel like I could hold on to something from back then. I didn't mean anything by it. Promise. It sounded sincere, like she was genuinely struggling, and part of me felt bad for her. But it still didn't explain everything. Didn't account for the intensity in her voice. The way she kept looking at me like she was searching for something. I pressed her, needing more. So nothing happened back then. I asked, my voice sharper than I meant it to be. Nothing I should remember. She shook her head a little too quickly, her eyes darting away. No, nothing. I cared about you, Ethan. You were like a second son to me. Always around, always making Jake laugh. I guess I got nostalgic, that's all. I'm sorry if I came across strange. I nodded, but I wasn't convinced. Her words sounded rehearsed, like she'd practiced them in her head. And there was still something in her eyes that told me she wasn't saying everything. I left her house that day, feeling like I'd gotten half the truth, if that. I started avoiding her street when I could, swapping routes with coworkers when her address came up, claiming I had a scheduling conflict or needed to cover a different area. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. Couldn't stop replaying every moment, every conversation, trying to find the missing piece. I even called Jake again a few weeks later, trying to feel him out without being too obvious. I asked if his mom was okay, if she seemed lonely, if he'd noticed anything off about her when he talked to her. He laughed it off, said she was fine, just adjusting to an empty nest now that he was gone. She's probably just bored, he said. You know how moms get. She'll find a hobby or something. It was typical Jake, brushing things off with a joke, and it didn't help me at all. Months later, I got a new job, better pay, fewer deliveries, working for a logistics company that kept me in an office most of the time. I didn't have to go to Willow Creek anymore, and I was relieved, like a weight had been lifted. But I still think about Laura sometimes, about that whisper, about the look in her eyes that I couldn't read. I've never told anyone the whole story. Not Jake. Not my girlfriend Sarah. Not even my therapist, who I started seeing last year to deal with some of my anxiety. It feels too weird, too uncertain, like I'm not even sure what I'm trying to explain. Did something happen back then that I've blocked out? Or was it all in my head? Just a lonely woman reaching out for a connection and I'm making it into something it's not. I don't know. All I know is that every time I drive past a cul-de-sac like hers with neat lawns and roses in the flower beds, my heart races and I hear her voice again. You remember me, right? I don't think I'll ever have an answer. And maybe that's the worst part. The not knowing, the wondering if there's something buried in my memory that I can't reach. It's like a package I can't deliver, a weight I carry around, waiting for someone to sign for it, to tell me what's inside. But no one ever does.